And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Life from the Inside Out with Kris. And this is your host, Dan Winkle. And I know it's been a while since we've been with you. We've taken a little break from taping, and I'd like to think that we're all rested and rejuvenated and ready to go with a new set of shows. So, it's good to be with you all. And if you've not watched our show before, we're going to be doing some deep trance channeling with Kris. He's going to be sharing a lot of wisdom and ideas and hopefully things that help enhance your life and have a really interesting conversation. So I hope you join us and stick with us for the show. And we'll check in with Serge. How are you doing today, Serge?
I am actually very good. And yes, the little break was helpful because life happens and things happen, and we have to move through them and embrace them. And I'm just, in a way, surprised. It's June 30th. It's almost halfway through the year.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. And for me, and maybe we'll get into it with Kris a little bit later, it's brought up the idea of certain cycles and how sometimes that contrasts. I want to call it an industrial lifestyle or the industrial age of you move from point A to B and you have an episode every week and you keep going no matter what. And I think at least for me it felt like this was a natural break point to step back. And I know in my life there's been certain times to when when I step away from a project and kind of rejuvenate and come back to it. So I think there's a certain cycle involved. So it'd be interesting to see perhaps if Kris has
Yeah,
anything to
because
say about that.
I'm already getting downloads. And yeah, I think he has some interesting points that he'll bring up. I just didn't expect it to come out boom like that, but it's doing that.
All
So
right.
maybe we can get underway.
Yeah, when you get a download like that, we don't want to hold it back, I guess.
Now we trust that you are comfortable.
Yes, Kris, thank you.
Indeed. And we also trust our audience is comfortable.
Hmm.
And yes, your question and the subject matter actually is of interest. As your species evolved, as you became who you are now, as your civilizations rose and fell in their own cycles, you might indeed recognize that there are cycles, even within cycles. And this, in part, stems back from those times when your species began to come together to form the ideas of a civilization. You did that within the greater cycles of nature itself. Whether they were in temperate zones or tropical zones or desert zones, there are cycles within all of them. So you adapted to those particular cycles in your locations for a variety of reasons, of course, for food, for shelter, and so on. So you adapted yourselves to natural cycles of living. And within your own selves, you have your own day and night cycles. The circadian cycles are extremely important, Not only because it gives you sleep, but specifically to bring you back into dream time. That is why you sleep. It is very different from popular and even scientific explanations. In those particular presentations, even your bodies have their own cycles. Your body's innate wisdom actually is quite phenomenal, almost miraculous in a way. For instance, if your blood is too acidic, your body uses minerals to try to balance and return the cycle to a more alkaline state. If your blood is too alkaline, it again uses minerals from your food to bring up a slightly more acidic state. If, for instance, minerals are not sufficiently provided through food, your body takes it from its own inner resources, which can lead to difficulties. So, having an appropriate diet and especially an appropriate positive mindset can help maintain the body's own cycles and innate wisdom in balance. And you want that. It is fine to say, yes, the body's innate wisdom will take care of us. But if, on the other hand, you do not assist it, then you end up with the difficulties and the challenges. So it is one thing to say, but it is another thing to actually help the body maintain that cycle of balance. And those balances also exist all around you. The seasons, if you live in those zones, even desert zones, have their own particular cycles. The movements of the tides, influenced by the moon, also presents a very specific cycle of nature. All around you, you will see that there are these particular cycles, but you have to pay attention. Now, what about your own inner cycles, your own personal cycles? Those are just as important as any of the other kinds of cycles imaginable. In fact, the use of your imagination also operates on a cyclical basis. Your imagination, your feelings, your emotions. But you have to pay attention to be able to assist those cycles, especially if you tend to gravitate towards closed or negative mindsets, and see how that operates for you. And it may be different for every single individual, but necessary as a point of observation. And in knowing how these cycles work, for instance, you may know that this particular action or activity will trigger a negative state within you. If you know that, you can take appropriate action to monitor and manage the situation so you do not go into the patterns. Does that make sense to you as well?
Yeah, I follow that.
Mm. So it is indeed very important to become aware. And in your personal case, meaning everyone's own personal case, to be self-aware is priceless. And for everything else, you have MasterCard. But that particular priceless means of mindfulness, that particular state, can enrich your existence well beyond what you have experienced up to now. And it is up to you, not your neighbor, not your government, not any kind of supernatural sky being to take care of these things for you, but you yourself. That is why you have collectively created a conscious mind so that you can then work on the details of your reality creation. And you have done so because we will just use the word spiritually. You know that this plane of existence can indeed be quite challenging. It is not for the weak to come here in this particular plane of existence. It is for those who are able to look at their particular conscious mind and their thoughts, feelings, emotions, and learn how to manage that mind. It's called self-mastery. Without self-mastery, you may indeed have an existence, but with self-mastery, you have a thriving and powerful life. It's a bit different because it allows you, you allow yourself to use the innate tools and resources and skills, not only of your conscious mind, but also your so-called subconscious mind, to literally carve your reality in such a way that you experience the fullness of life. And that is a tricky set of words, the fullness of life. Because even the single impoverished mother with one or two or three mouths to feed her little urchins, perhaps they are even living on a street corner or under a bridge, they too can experience the fullness of life from their particular perspective. Experiencing a full life does not mean you become a Jeff Bezos or someone else for that matter. It means that you can experience life in the deepest way possible for yourself. That is where fulfillment comes from. That is the nature of fulfillment. Some people may think, oh, yes, Elon Musk or Bezos or so many others, Bill Gates and so on, they are mega millionaires. They live life. And they may not. But your perception deludes you. So the main idea is self-mastery allows you to recognize the particular cycles of life that go on all around you. You get up every morning. There, right then is a particular cycle. You go to work, a man-made cycle, but one that your culture and society has agreed upon. And everything that entails that experience, shopping, cooking, everything else, you're maintaining life. All of these are smaller cycles, very important. So we do encourage you to look at, perhaps in a manner or in a way that you have never thought possible or significant. But doing so will have an impact upon your experience. So we do encourage everyone to begin to see just how your personal cycles mesh in with your cultural, social, and other cycles, your civilization's cycle, and the cycles of greater rise and falls of civilizations throughout time immemorial. It has been going on for a very, very long time in your terms. And yet, at another layer of experience, the kind of time that you are accustomed to may not be what you think it is, because it is based upon experience and not clock time or sundial time in the old days, but based upon experience. Does that bring some answers to your question and bring more questions to your answer?
Well, one thing I'm curious about is it seems like the value of life is inherent. It's very clear from your example that you're saying it's certainly not dependent on wealth. Um, but because the person living on the street or in whatever circumstance could see that it's more dependent on our own awareness or perceptions to see that innate value, and none of the other circumstances really matter other than our ability to do that, it would seem.
Everything depends upon perception. The whole of your experience is perception. There is nothing outside of perception. So what you perceive is your experience. That is your reality. Once you can grok this, once you can wrap yourselves around that concept that reality is perception, then it gives you additional insights in order for you to mold or carve a different experience based upon your perceptions. If your perceptions show you your beliefs and the perception is such that you can't find work, nobody wants you, nobody loves you, which is a very prevalent theme. It seems only in modern times and throughout many times. If your perception is such, you will experience that. The experience will show you what your perception is. If you don't like it, then by all means, begin to change the perception. When your car gives you a problem, what do you do? Do you just sit by the roadside, bemoan the fact that your car is giving you problems, or you decide to take some action, take it to the mechanic, to the shop?
Well, yeah, to the mechanic.
Indeed. In a certain way, you have all the knowledge of a mechanic, but in terms of reality creation, because it is based on perception. So you are your own mechanics of perception. So you yourselves, just like in the 40s, 50s, and even 60s, and maybe even 70s, you would find the owner's manual for your car. You could go through it. You could lift the hood of the car. You could tinker with the engine in such a way that you could repair the deficiency or the difficulty. You could take out the spark plugs. You could change the oil. You have the very similar state within your daily experience. You can change your perceptions. Changing your perceptions will alter the fabric of your reality. When you go to the mechanic makes certain to identify the difficulty, makes necessary adjustments, and the result is a car that works well again. So he had changed the reality. So in a similar way, you can all become licensed mechanics of reality. And Uncle Seth has provided, as well as others, but Uncle Seth specifically, provided a very detailed operator's manual, the nature of personal reality. That book alone is sufficient to assist anyone in changing their perception by altering what causes the perception in the first place. Your thoughts, ideas, beliefs, feelings, emotions, attitudes, and so on. Does that assist you?
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. That what's on the tip of my tongue is just uh, learning. More about that. Is there a nature of personal reality 2.0 in the wings? What we can do or how we manage that a little bit with a little bit more awareness than maybe we have in the past.
Hmm. Over the last few decades, a great deal has transpired in terms of individuals, private, run of the mill individuals of everyday life have started paying attention. The language of reality creation has entered the lexicon of the common individual. So people have a small idea that somehow they might indeed not be alone. They might be able to do something about their creations. And one of the first steps is acknowledging, indeed, that your experiences are not the result of outside agencies, but the result of thinking. And we should clarify that there are some who tend to perceive this as meaning, oh, my reality is not going my way, so it's my fault. This is not the point. The point is your thinking was engaged in a particular way and it didn't bring the results you wanted. Change the thinking. Otherwise, trying to make yourself the victim of your own stuff doesn't help your cause. It is just a matter of reorganizing the thinking so that it becomes beneficial and supportive and nurturing. Does that also make sense?
Yeah, yes, it does. And I know perhaps we're starting to get towards the end of an episode, so I'm looking forward to what else you may have and maybe expanding in the next.
Indeed. So please give your puppy a pat on the head for us.
You notice he snuck in, huh? All right, will do. And yeah, so looking forward to the next episode. We can expand on
Indeed.
that. Not the puppy, but the material.